guys, welcome back to the Funny Thing Is podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Birch, where every week I bring you someone who shares their trauma, the medicine they took to heal, and the funniest lesson they learned along the way. Today is no exception. I am here with writer, comedian, and actor Clayton Farris. Yay!
Hi! Yay, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
In a weird setting.
In a weird setting. Also, one of the funniest people on Instagram that I know of right now, at Clayton Farris, Farris.
Yeah, at Clayton Farris.
If you have not seen his ear one bit or his hiking stuff, it is, or the breakup stuff.
Yeah.
You do that with a friend.
I do that with Steph Barkley. We do breakups of every generation where we just take slang and...
The one that I think it's the 1990s grunge people.
Yeah.
I had that exact breakup. He had like a lip ring.
Me too,
And it was
yeah.
like, bleh, like it was, that is perfect. So you guys have to follow him because he's amazing.
Thanks.
All right, so let's get to it. What is a life-changing event that changed everything for you?
Oh my God.
Or share your trauma, whatever you want to do. Share your trauma.
I mean, I think that like, basically like learning at a certain age that my specific type of anxiety that I was dealing with was actually OCD.
Okay.
Was kind of, was a life-changing event for me.
Yeah.
Because it was a thing where I was, it brought me so much peace knowing that that I actually was kind of struggling with like a diagnosable
Right.
like thing as opposed to just like.
How old were you when you figured that out?
I mean, that was like not even that long ago. That was probably like 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was something that I struggled with since I was a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did it stem from?
So, I mean, my guess is I grew up in the South in Texas,
Okay.
which is a highly, like it's very gendered and binary in terms of like how people are supposed to behave and act.
Right.
And I guess something about my existence didn't really make sense for a lot of people in terms of like being like a boy or like
Masculine.
masculine
Yeah.
enough.
Right.
Just because I had a lot of friends that were girls. I did theater. I was like an excitable, fun
Yeah.
kid. And I wouldn't say I was necessarily feminine, but something about me didn't fit in with
Their criteria.
the criteria
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
like, that
yeah.
like they were taught, when they were kids. So it just led to a lot of bullying and kind of, being called the F word.
Yeah.
Can I say that
Yeah,
word?
you can say it.
Fag,
Yeah.
faggot.
Yeah.
Being called a girl, being called all these things. And I still like managed to survive and like had a great childhood and
Right.
had friends and like that. But there was always this thing coming at me. And it kind of like when I was a kid triggered this thing in my head. The first thought was kind of just like, don't be gay, don't be gay, don't be gay.
Oh God.
And it was like, it's not just like kind of like having the thought of like, don't be gay. It's like,
Right.
it's like a repetitive, like nonstop,
Yeah.
like thought that you have.
Right. And are you gay?
No.
No. And so at the time, this had to,
So at
especially
the
going
time
through
it was,
puberty.
at the time it was very confusing. And I was kind of like, am I seeing something about myself
Yeah.
are they seeing something in me that I'm not seeing?
Right.
And I was a little progressive, I guess, for my age, because it's not like there were gay kids and like it wasn't an issue for me necessarily.
Right.
It was just confusing.
Right.
So it was this repetitive thought of like, don't be gay, don't be gay, don't be gay.
Yeah.
When I was like 10,
Yeah.
like not even really
Oh my
thinking
God.
about
You're not
like,
even thinking about it.
yeah, like
then.
not even thinking about like sexuality or anything like that. But I just knew it was bad because of how
Right.
I was being treated by people.
Right.
So that was like the early stages of it. And that kind of extra voice in my head of just kind of continued all the way up until, and it would take on various kind of themes,
Mm-hmm.
they call it, where it would be like I developed psoriasis
Mm-hmm.
and in my head I was like, you have AIDS. And it just
Yeah. So it's a tape that keeps playing.
yeah, and that
Oh
was
my
like
God.
that's like a normal one, like someone thinking that they have like a disease or something like that. And
Right.
but it's just kind of like this constant.
It goes back to that bullying.
Yeah, and it all goes back to that. And it's something about trying to keep myself safe or protect myself or thinking that I can control how people are like
Perceiving you.
perceiving me.
Yeah.
And it just like spiraled. And yeah, it wasn't until I got older that I was kind of like diagnosed with OCD.
Okay.
And that's when I was like, oh, this extra voice in my head is like I don't need to listen to it.
Right.
It's not real.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did your OCD, because I know a lot of people are like, they have to say the same number, or they have to
I
turn a
mean,
knob, or
the
they
OCD itself is the obsessive thought. Like
right.
the obsession
Okay, it's the thought that
is
you
the
have.
thought. So it's yeah, so like the obsession is what goes along with the thought. So like, I mean, this is like kind of embarrassing to talk about. And
Yeah,
I'm like, let me talk
yeah.
about it in a public setting with
Yes.
strangers.
Yes, perfect.
But so anytime you like think you don't have control, like I'm 40 years old, my hair started thinning, and that was that like triggered me into, so like a normal person's like, oh God, my hair's thinning. Like
Right.
I ended up like, like almost suicidal, talking to like a therapist and like having to fight my way out of this thing, because it's
Wow.
the obsession goes from not just like being obsessed with like, oh, my hair's thinning.
And then moving on.
Yeah, it
It's
goes to like, oh, my hair's thinning. I'm never gonna work again. I'm never gonna be lovable. I'm never gonna like have sex again. No one's gonna like it. So it just like spirals and stacks.
Yeah.
And you get obsessed with like those things. So like if I was in a so like whenever I was dealing with the sexuality OCD, like when I was in a group of people, I would be like, I would look at like a girl and be like, am I attracted to her? Look at a guy, like, am I attracted? Like, and it's like,
Is that what sexuality OCD is?
yeah, it's just like you're checking. It's called checking. So like
Okay.
you're checking, like, am I attracted? Am I attracted? Am I attracted? Am I? But that's not even how attraction works. Like you don't
Yeah.
like look at someone and
just
like
are,
pop
yeah.
a boner.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
like
that'd be great.
You're
That'd be
like,
great.
that'd be great if it was like that. Now you can do that if you just take a little pill. But so, and then when it became like the I don't even know what you call it, but just like obsessed with how it's kind of like body dysmorphia in a way.
Right.
And then you're in a crowd and you're looking at every single person like, is that what I'm gonna look like? Is that what I'm gonna look like? Is that what I'm gonna look like? And like it's like it's I can't stress enough that it's like the reason that it's an issue and kind of like like diagnosable is because it starts messing with your day-to-day life, because it's all you're thinking about.
Right.
And you can't think about other things.
Right.
And yeah.
That's why it's like the compulsion.
That's the compulsion is to do these like checks, and it's
how can I ask how that affects your relationships with women?
So yeah, I mean, it's this constantly being obsessed with. So in the end, I kind of like realize I'm bisexual, because when you go with your whole life thinking like you might be gay,
right,
like you're gonna be more open to it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You're gonna like have more experiences, or kind of like testing it out to see like, is this for me? Is this not for me?
Right.
And it's like now, like I have a female partner and we've been together for a while, but I mean, it affects you because you're thinking like,
yeah, all the time.
am I into this? But it goes both ways. Like if I say I were to try to date a guy, I'd be like, am I into this? Should I be with the one? It goes both ways. So it's not just like, am I gay? It's like, am I straight? Am I straight? Like it goes.
It's just constant.
It's just constant. And like what you kind of end up learning is like, it doesn't matter what your preference is really. For someone like me, if you're gonna have these like thoughts anyways, it's just like, who do you like? Who are you with? And ultimately, you have to get beyond these like the thoughts and like get to something that's underneath that, to really, because there's thoughts in my head that I do listen to, and there's like a guidance system that I do listen to, but that's not the OCD voice, yeah.
So what is the medicine you took, or what you say that helped you heal?
So essentially, like I got into a relationship during the pandemic with my current girlfriend, and there's a part of OCD also that's like relationship OCD.
Okay.
And you become like obsessed with the negative things about your relationship. And so the same way that I was obsessed with all these other things, I became obsessed with like any slight flaw my partner has,
that's brutal.
Any negative, any feeling of uncomfortable in a relationship would blow up to like a bajillion.
Yeah.
But I knew deep down that I really loved this person.
Right.
And that was not, that there was like my anxiety, my OCD was getting in the way of like us having a relationship.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to take 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms with a guide.
Okay. When did this happen?
I mean, I did this like less than a year ago. I did it last
Yes.
like I did it last August.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. So psilocybin,
Shrooms.
shrooms,
Shrooms.
mushrooms,
Yeah.
whatever you call it. Like the scientific term is psilocybin. So I had done mushrooms when I was like 19, like just very
Okay.
casually with my girlfriend at the time,
Yeah.
and kind of realized that like I had a very intense experience. Like saw stuff, went on this huge journey. Didn't really realize that. I think that that actually affected me in a way moving forward. Like
Okay.
I had a really solid like few years where I wasn't having a lot of OC, but I'm only realizing this like when I think
Now.
back to it.
Okay.
And yeah, like like not having as much anxiety, kind of like being very open, loving, like that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So as you know, like plant medicine is kind of like having like its
Resurgence. Yes.
and like this moment. And I just really started reading a lot about it and realizing that specifically for OCD, it can be very like helpful.
Okay.
And but I was terrified to do it because when you're doing it, you're doing 5 grams, which they call a heroic dose. So,
Oh God. Okay, that's intimidating.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So like we all want to be a hero, except when it's like you don't know what's beyond. Like
Yeah, you don't know what's out there.
You
That's
don't know
why
what's
I've never
out
done
there.
it, by the way. And I actually want to do it. My friend who introduced us, Corey Clifford. That's who I want to do it with.
yeah.
And I'm like terrified because I'm like, what's on the other side? And will I come
So
back?
yeah, I started dabbling a bit with microdosing and that sort of thing, and realizing like, oh, when I take a very low level, it actually just takes away my OCD in a way, and the extra anxiety just goes away, and I can be
Right.
present. I can
Okay.
be present.
Yeah.
So like it took me about a year to kind of actually decide to do it, and I found
Okay.
a guide through a friend,
Yeah.
and yeah, so like so 5 grams is like a heroic dose. So I talked to this guide, and she's like, yeah, come on out, we'll do this. It's completely illegal, but
Yeah.
the person that did it for me is like a therapist essentially, and she
Right.
does this for people.
Yeah.
And she has as much training as she can in terms of like working with different shamans across the
Right.
world and like learning what she can, but it still is not really, there's no like certification. It's not like you're like a PhD or whatever.
Right. And is this just you or a group?
This is just me. So
Okay.
I realized that like when I take mushrooms, it's always been kind of like a very solo experience for me, because it's not like being drunk or
Which is like a community.
yeah, it's not, it doesn't make you more social, it doesn't make you more like whatever. It's its own experience that you have to really be prepared for. And if you're
Okay.
already an anxious person
Persian?
if you're an anxious person, it's gonna be like, who fucking knows what was gonna happen. I was scared,
Yeah.
but I almost backed out, and I rewatched that documentary that everyone watches. It's called How to Change Your Mind. Yep.
That's been hit up a lot on this podcast.
Yeah, so I rewatched it, and I watched the specific one about psilocybin, and this guy tells his OCD story and how it cured his OCD. So I was like, I gotta do this. I
Yeah.
gotta try. I've done it before. I didn't go crazy.
Okay.
Let's see what
do it.
happens.
Let's try it.
But this is like 20 years later, like I hadn't done it in that long.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm like setting it up. So whatever.
I'm
You're
so
like
excited.
nervous.
I'm
I
so
can see.
excited. I'm so excited.
So you go. I'm in Arizona, and like I kind of like go in, and I was actually in a very like kind of agitated place in this moment. Like I was very anxious.
Okay.
I was like, my OCD was thriving. My like voice was like just
Activated.
like activated. Like there's also been times where like the voice is just like tells you you're a loser, like like all these different
Yeah.
things. So I go, and we do like this. We do like the intake where it's basically like a 2-hour therapy session. We just talk about my whole life and all that. And she's like, what do you want to like accomplish from this? And
Right.
you write down your goals. And so I was like, I want to be connected to Mother Earth.
Okay.
I want to remember what love is. Like I'm saying all these things that are like woo
Yeah, woo-woo,
like
hippie,
woo
yeah.
hippie. Even though I knew, I was like, I don't feel any of that shit right now. Like but that's what I kind of wanted.
Right.
But then the medicine wanted me to have like something else.
Okay.
Apparently.
Okay. Oh, I'm so
Because
excited.
what they say about these things, it's like the mushrooms tell you what you need to hear. So like when people say they have bad trips, it's not a bad trip. It's just like that's what you needed to
Yeah,
like.
you were told something, you just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
So essentially, like I go through all the intake. We set up. It's like a very nice office. There's like this. It's not a bed. It's like a mat with like pillows and blankets and all
Okay.
that stuff, so you can be comfortable. And so she brings in this tea and she pours the mushrooms in, and I like stir it like 10 times, and it's kind of ceremonial. She like
Great.
sages me and all this stuff.
Love.
Meanwhile, she's just like a white shaman lady. She's not
Yes.
like someone from like Costa Rica
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. Her
Um,
name's Deborah.
yeah. I always say her name's Karen, but
Yeah.
it wasn't Karen.
Yeah. We can't out her.
We can't out her. But
Yeah.
so all that happens, and she gives me the tea, and she's like, drink this tea. I'll be back in 20 minutes. And like, I think the intention of having a guide is usually someone to be there to walk you through things or
Right.
talk to you, or if something comes up, they can be there with you. Because she says that she goes inside your mushroom trip as you're in there, like she'll be meditating and like dive in there.
Oh, that's some deep stuff.
I know,
That's
exactly.
crazy. I realize she's just like standing there on her phone.
Yeah, like so I didn't know what to expect. Like I literally, like, the grounds are beautiful, so I was like, I'm gonna be walking around and like touching cactuses and like. So anyways, I drink my stuff, and you do it with an eye mask. Like
Okay.
that's part of the process.
Okay.
So she's like, just lay back. I drink the whole thing. I lay back, and I'm just sitting there, kind of like, what's gonna happen?
Waiting, yeah. How long does it take to kick in, by the way?
It like anywhere between like 30 and like an hour.
Okay.
But what I knew going in was that I'm very sensitive to mushrooms, and I kind of forgot to mention that to her.
Oh my God, Clayton!
So like
So you're like 2
in
minutes in.
hindsight, I wish I would have taken a little bit, because a lot of people take a smaller dose and then like titrate up a bit.
Yeah.
You take more, or the guide is like, how you feeling? Do you want more?
Yeah.
And so I swear it was like 15 minutes in. I'm looking up at like this cactus. There's like a butterfly. And there was like maybe 10 seconds where I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I see what beauty is. And then it was just like, I got blasted to the moon. Like, and they talk about this thing called ego death, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So like ego death is essentially where like everything you know about yourself in this realm, like,
yeah.
like I'm an actor, I'm wearing a hat, I like to wear black shirts, I have a Mazda, my girlfriend's name is Laura, my parents are these people,
Yeah.
I'm an anxious person. Everything you know about yourself literally starts slipping away from you. And so you're like, I'm like, so I was like, before I was like consciously, I was like, I want to think about Laura and my relationship. And as I'm thinking about it, it's like, who's Laura? Who's your relationship?
Being pulled away.
None of that exists. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, okay, what about my parents?
Pulled away.
Pulled
Oh
away.
my
There's no,
God,
you
dude.
have no parents. What about my anxiety? That's not a thing. You have none of that. All you have is like this like space of colors. And so like,
Oh, dude.
but you're still conscious. Like
Yeah.
you still have like that one part of you that's conscious and that's experiencing all of this happening.
Yeah.
But like the guide like comes up and she's like, do you want to talk about? And I'm like, no, no talkie. Just let me be here. And she's like writing down stuff I'm saying. And apparently I kept saying like, I paid to be here. I paid to be here. Like reminding myself like I meant to be here. I wanted to do this.
You said I paid to be
And like
here.
at one point I like take off my mask and like I look over and like I said, she's like this little white lady, but I look over and I'm in like a pueblo and she's like sitting there like looking like this ancient like Indian, like just like the
everything
weirdest,
just switched.
switch, like next level, like crazy, just colors. Like I don't even really know how to describe what happened. It was just and what I've learned is like it's not even the trip itself that is the useful thing. So anyways, I'm in this bizarre world. I start coming back. I start kind of remembering stuff. This is, by the way, I take off.
I was gonna say, how long does a trip
So
last?
that's the thing is like I take off my mask and it's like 6 hours later. Like you're
Dude.
and it felt like it was like 5 minutes, but it also felt like it was like 2 days.
An eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. Time goes away. All that
Time
stuff.
is relative. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I come down, I start being like, okay, I'm here. I start remembering where I'm at.
Yeah.
Now I'm still tripping, but I'm like at a normal dose,
Yeah.
because I had taken so much. So
Right.
I come down, I'm able to talk to her, and she's like, man, she's like, the mushrooms were very good to you. And I'm like, were they?
That's
Were
how
they?
I would describe it.
So this is where things get really weird. So I come down and she starts feeding me like mangoes, and I'm like, these are delicious. Deep in my trip, I start realizing there's like I start hearing a voice in my head, but the voice in my head is like, it's starting to speak. And every time I tell this story, I sound like a crazy person.
I'm
But
so excited.
the voice is starting. So I'm hearing this voice, but now the voice is like, Cocoa Puff, banana French fry, applesauce. Like it's not making any sense.
Right.
It's saying like words, but it's
Yeah.
not making any sense.
Right.
It's like, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And so I come down and I'm like, I'm on mushrooms, maybe it'll go away. And it doesn't go away. And we sit outside, it's raining, we're talking, we talk a little bit, but I'm still hearing this voice. And I go to sleep. I'm fine. I fell asleep. I wake up the next morning and the voice is still there. So I go into her office for my like day after thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I am hearing, because I wanted to just be like, oh my God, I felt great. I saw beauty. I saw love. But I was like, the trip was very intense and hard for me. And now I'm hearing a voice in my head.
Yeah. So I have some concerns. Yeah.
But it wasn't like, do you have a voice in your head that's just like maybe helps you write comedy or like just that voice that like, and you hear it as your own voice.
Right.
So like, that's what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing like someone that's like,
you should run into traffic.
Right.
Kill your mom.
I'm hearing myself, but it's not making sense. So I kind of tell her that. And then I'm like, I'm hearing a voice and she's like, do you have any history of schizophrenia in your family? And I'm like, we should have talked about that before. I just ate a lot of mushrooms.
Oh my God.
But no, I don't. Thank God.
Oh God, I thought you were about to say yes, everybody.
No.
Okay. So no, you don't. Okay.
So no, I don't. She's like, the mushrooms are still working on you. I'm like, you sound like, this is crazy. What I did was just crazy.
Yeah.
And maybe a little dangerous. And maybe I should not have done that. So I'm like, I gotta hide out. So I go to this like really nice hotel in Arizona to like take a day to like relax before I come back to LA.
Right.
Meanwhile, my mom, like the morning after I come down off the mushroom, she's like, I'm coming to LA tomorrow. Like she's like surprise visiting me. And I'm like, oh wow. So anyway, so this voice in my head was there. It starts dissipating. I'm at this pool in Tucson and I'm starting to actually be like, wow, everything is really beautiful. I'm starting to have these like feelings of like gratitude.
Yeah.
And like, oh, this is like, life is beautiful. This is, how amazing is it that I rented this hotel room? I have this whole pool by myself. I'm hanging out in the pool. I see this ant. I'm like, I need to save this ant. I like save this ant out of the pool.
Yeah.
I see this other ant. I'm like, oh, there's an ant. I gotta save that ant. There's another ant. I start saving all these ants. And I'm like, I'm the Dalai Lama. I'm the best person there is. And then I see this roach. And the roach is like struggling. And I was like, I'm not touching this roach. It's disgusting. And then I was like, no, you have to, if you're going to save the ant, you have to save the roach.
Save them all.
And so I like save the roach. And I'm like, oh my God, you have to be kind to like I'm having these like huge.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the past 10 years of my life has only been about anxiety and like stress.
Yeah.
I've not been able to have a moment where I could even be like, oh, I should be kind to everybody. I'm not having these thoughts because I'm so focused on my anxiety.
Yeah, there's no peripheral. It's literally just that one thought.
Yeah, it's just, so I'm like, oh, maybe something is happening. And then this voice is kind of dwindling away, or I'm trying to listen to it, but it's not making any sense. It's speaking gibberish.
Right.
And so then like as a few days go by, I'm realizing that I'm having more of these moments where I'm present with people and I'm like, seeing beauty in things and I'm thinking about my future and I'm like, oh wait, life is exciting.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, maybe there's a God. Like just weird stuff that I haven't thought about in years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is what like mushrooms working means.
Looks like, yeah.
And I realized that the OCD voice in my head had literally been scrambled. Like it wasn't making sense.
Yeah.
So like that voice that's like, you need to freak out about this or that. When I tried to go back and listen to it, it wasn't there. It was speaking literal gibberish. So there was nothing that it could tell me. and it just dwindled and went away.
Yeah.
So it's like anytime, so it's still been gone since then.
Dang.
So it's like, would I say that it cured it? I mean, like, I don't want to say that because that's a big claim.
Yeah, but for you personally, like
For me
this is the thing on this,
personally-
we're not dictating anybody else's life.
For
Yeah.
me personally, it was profoundly impactful on me feeling better, and for that specific ailment to go away.
Yeah. Do you still microdose?
I still microdose, yeah.
Okay.
And I still get anxious about things. I still, like, if I have a lot of work, I'm stressed out about it.
Which
but
is normal.
which
Yeah.
is normal, but the whole that part of me that was a little bit broken is like is not there anymore.
Dude, that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And the weird thing about it is, like, this is where it starts getting like woo-woo, because it's like it didn't feel, it felt like the medicine I took actually was like had a purpose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it felt like it was doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
Like, it knew what it was needed
There
to do, and
for
it
you
did it.
specifically.
Yeah, and it did it
Yeah.
like intentionally.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people, especially when it comes to like plant healing medicine or like ayahuasca, because that's what I want to do. I also want to do that. But the main thing is it's like it's helping you and what your individual needs are.
Yeah.
And like two people can go to the same thing, have two completely different life experiences, and it'll fix both. It's crazy.
And like, maybe if I went back and did it, I could have that like walking in nature, life is beautiful experience while
Yeah.
on the mushrooms.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter to me that I didn't have that experience, because it helped me so much afterwards.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What would you say is the funniest thing that you've learned from all of it?
I mean, the funniest thing I've learned is just like, you don't have to listen to the voices in your head,
Yeah.
no matter how loud they are. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you can choose not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what was the story you were going to share earlier? Do you remember it?
Oh, well, it was just about like the OCD, like the like while I was in the middle of like my sexuality OCD kind of
Yeah.
like struggle, I ended up going to like basically like a sex therapist to the stars.
Yeah. Oh my God. What?
Like this like therapist, and because I was going to therapy, but I was like, I need to like go to like a therapist.
Yes.
And it was like $750. It was like this really expensive lady.
Yep.
And I was like, give me the most expensive, whatever.
best,
And I like
yeah.
went, it was like in the middle of Beverly Hills.
Yep.
And I essentially go into her and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gay or straight.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that.
Okay.
I can't figure it out. So I like basically had to get diagnosed as bisexual.
What?
That's like how, like, that's not
I
really
would
what
love to
happened.
see her like her notepad
But
if
it-
she's going through that.
But I mean, she's a
both.
sex therapist, so she's obviously heard like way worse.
Yeah.
But it's more just like I ended up just going through my whole history, my whole sexual history, and just like, she's like, relax, dude. You're fine. It's not like, it doesn't matter. It was just, yeah. That was the
Yeah,
whole story.
because it's like you're wanting to label so hard.
You
It's
just
like,
want to
dude,
label yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't have to label. Like, sometimes labels work if you need them to, and then sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of people put like the label thing as like that's how I know who I am.
Right.
Versus like once you actually know who you are, you don't need the labels.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Isn't
Or
that
you
weird?
don't need things to define you. Like, I've always thought about like people that are like, I hate ketchup.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Like,
that's what you're basing your personality
Melody
on.
on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's probably also why your comedy is so funny. Because it's like you can tap into like a very niche personality in each one. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I think that like what I'm learning about comedy as I like do it more and more is like the more specific it is to people,
It's
to like the
hilarious.
more it's like relatable. It's so weird.
Yeah. Which is odd because you think it would be different.
Yeah.
With the with the podcast, it's like I'll have people on. It's like, oh, we thought it was going to be them telling their own personal, but it's everybody's been through a journey. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
yeah, but it's like your personal journey is what is relatable.
Yeah.
Like, relatable to people.
yeah, it's the human experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I hope like when I do stuff like this, and that's why I like talking about it. Why I like talking about the mushroom things, because I think it's like there's a lot of people that really, really struggle with anxiety
Yeah.
and don't even know that they're,
Is an option.
they don't even know that they think like, cause that was the whole thing is like the way that my brain was working was, I thought that was like
That was everybody's.
normal. I thought
Everybody works that way.
everyone was
Yeah.
singularly focused on one thought for 10 years.
Yeah.
I thought that's how everybody's
Yeah. Like even when you said,
brain worked.
do you have a voice in your head? And I'm like thinking about it and I'm like, yeah, I think like I have more of it when it has to like actually writing scripts.
Yeah.
There's like, I say it's like my angel and I'm like, good one. And I'll like wink up at it.
Yeah.
Which is fucking weird.
Well, but I read recently that some people don't have any sort of voice in their head.
Yeah.
Like, and I keep saying voice in my head and it makes me sound like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But I just mean like when you're a writer or creative, like there's always, like I always have this like extra voice that's like clocking everything
Yeah.
to use later.
Yeah.
Or like if someone says something a certain way, it's like, oh, they said it like this. And like I'm
Yeah.
clocking it or I'm
Right.
seeing like there's something that's like, it's like, I just call it like your creative voice.
Yeah.
I think
Which is, that's
most
what it
people
is.
have it.
That's what it is. Yeah.
But then I had that extra OCD voice.
On top of it. That's a very busy brain.
It's a busy brain.
It's got to be exhausting. Or
Yeah.
it would have been.
But
yeah.
so that's why I think it's important to talk about this stuff, because some people, if it can like enlighten anyone to the fact that maybe the way their mind is working is not
Yeah.
I don't want to say normal, but is not the norm, and there's a way to not have that and have a more like peaceful, chill life.
Yeah.
Then it's like worth it.
Yeah, I've been watching so many like Netflix things on like LSD and plant-based stuff, and it's like, why aren't we tapping into that more as a healing practice?
I mean, it seems like people are starting to, but
Yeah.
it's still like illegal.
I
And
know.
I mean, I should have brought you some microdoses.
I want the lady's number immediately.
will
I'm
connect
going there
you.
tomorrow.
I will connect you.
Yeah.
Another funny thing that happened was at one point during my trip, I like came out because she told me this, like, she's like, if I have to step out and go to the restroom or something, she's like, my partner is going to come in here just to sit with you. Cause like, you have to have someone
Yeah, for sure.
there. Cause that's
Right.
the whole, that's what makes it like honorable or like whatever. Like
There needs to be a witness to your thing. Yeah.
there needs to be someone there with you because
Right.
someone just fed you a bunch of drugs
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And like but I kind of forgot, and I like looked up and it was this guy, and I was like, oh. And like there was a song playing that was like on loop because you get loops a lot, and I was
Yeah.
kind of like, I said something like, is this like your music, or like what is this music? And he was like, in normal life this would have been fine, but he was like, yeah, that's my playlist, you got a problem with it or something? But I was like on mushrooms, so I was like, oh my God. Like went back into my like,
Like
I'm
how
like,
embarrassing.
yeah, I'm
I
like,
can't
I'd rather
believe
be
you-
in the depths of this prison of a mind than dealing with this
stranger in his playlist. Oh my God.
So
One of the questions
yeah,
I was going to
it's
ask
weird.
you is, so that was in last August. When did you start blowing up on Instagram? Has it been since then? I'm just wondering if there's a correlation
Okay.
between getting rid of your anxiety and like your creative pop.
So yes. So like yes. So
Yeah.
I think part of like going on one of these journeys is, especially with like the guide I did it with, it's like the intention that she wants to set is like, after this, you'll have some things positive that you've been wanting to happen to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, since then, like immediately when it happened, I became like the quiet quitting guy for like a while.
Yeah.
And I was like I was literally doing like interviews on like, this was 5 days later. And like, so I became the quiet quitting person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like the spokesperson for that movement.
Yeah.
One of them.
Great.
But yeah, I mean, since then is when like, my career started to blow up more.
Yeah.
But a big part of it is just having the space to focus on
Stuff. Yeah.
to focus on stuff and be more intentional about stuff and not have this like worry.
I also
going
think
on.
like everything's like energy based, right? Like I believe in that so much. Like we talked about this. I was doing. I had Jen Sturger on, who's a comic, and she goes, I have to scrap 30 minutes, and I go, why? She goes, will you help me do this new stuff? And she goes, well, because I'm still telling stuff about when I was married, and it's not working.
Right.
And I'm like, that's so funny. And she goes, did you ever have a bad show in front of your family? I go, the worst show I ever did was in Kansas City, my hometown, opening for Chris Porter, who has also been a guest. And it was, my whole family was there. And I go, you know what? It's our first show back from the pandemic. We haven't performed in a year. I'm going to do my best of. But I'd just given birth to a baby 6 months before. I was struggling with an autoimmune disease from it. I almost died on the table. And here I am telling dick jokes and dating jokes about what a slutty fun girl I am. And I'm like, I did my best of that.
Right.
Always killed. Like
Yeah.
I'd been doing it for so long that I was like, oh, I know what's going to work. And I ate shit every single show, all 6 shows. I ate shit. And it was like, I couldn't figure out. And Chris was like, "It's because none of that's true, dude. And the audience can smell it."
Yeah.
And he's like, your energy, he goes, I think it's funny. Like you can tell on written paper, it's funny. And he goes, but your energy doesn't match anymore. So there's something about, like, I wonder if like the shrooms, like, if that anxiety isn't there, that's gotta breathe energetically somewhere.
Absolutely.
Right?
And also like even coming on here and talking about this and like talking about like being bisexual and stuff like that, like I probably wouldn't have done
Would have
that
never done that.
a
Yeah.
year ago. And now I'm just kind of like very open
Who
to
cares?
it. It's
Yeah.
like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's my journey, my experience, and no one cares.
Yeah.
Like I can be like, I'm bisexual, and literally everyone's like, eh.
Okay. Yeah. The
As
stuff we
opposed-
worry about. And then
yeah,
it's like, oh.
but it's like we worry about everything. You just don't take things as seriously, like in a good way. Like things don't hold the weight that they did. If you're an anxious person, everything's like, oh my God, this is that, and that. Everything feels like that. And after,
it also makes you more approachable when that anxious is gone. I
totally,
think, right? Yeah.
And like you're just more loving. And like also, my guide told me that I was in my, I think it's Saturn return.
Okay.
So like, because like after we did this, she did like my numerology and like all this stuff.
Yes.
It was very, very woo woo.
I will do all of that.
But when
That's my bread and butter.
Like, I think it's 27 is your like Venus, is whatever, like 27, and then like around your early 40s is your like Saturn return.
Yeah.
I think, don't quote me. But
I don't know this.
It's like that's when you kind of like step into your power, they say.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Could be BS.
Yeah, I want to do that. If you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did, please don't forget to follow us at The Funny Thing Is Podcast on all the socials or NicoleComedy.com. And as always, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.